What's up, Jay?
Great to see you.
How's it going?
Good to see you.
You too, Nick. I like how Cris started that in a defensive stance.
Oh, yeah,
really,
we weren't on
that never happened.
Man, you got to
that
defend
never
some
happened.
people.
But not when you played.
Oh.
Not for you.
Oh,
it
yes,
was this.
let's hear it.
You should have started like this. You should have started like this.
This morning when you cut your face, should have cut your neck.
I do want to let the audience know something. A little back of the napkin tabulations. I believe Jay Wright joins Super Bowl champion Lane Johnson as the only three-time guests of this show.
Is that right?
I think you
it's a Philadelphia thing.
Yeah, you are now.
It's a Philly thing.
Yeah, you
Jenna's got a little Philly in her.
I got a little Philly. CC's got a little Philly in him.
I got nothing.
I appreciate that.
Nick can spell Philadelphia. So, hey, we had Coach. We had Chris Mack, the head coach of Xavier, on a couple minutes ago.
In the hallway.
He was just talking about what a pathetic program you guys have and how much better Xavier. No, we were talking about the strength of the Big East and how good this conference is to have two of the best teams in the country. Talk a little bit about what it's like playing in this conference.
It is. It's really cool. You know, I came up in the old Big East, and I never thought anything could match that. And it's never going to be the same. But where this league is right now, you look at the possibility of maybe 7 teams in the NCAA tournament, and what Cris was talking about is, you know, Xavier and Villanova are ranked, I think, 2 and 3 in the country, but just as important, maybe more, is in the RPI, we're both 2 and 3, which shows the strength of our league, the strength of our out-of-conference schedule. And then, given that, we got beat by this last-place team in the league. And so everybody can beat everybody. It's really cool. It's an amazing conference.
And we talked with you right before the year, and we talked about it's a good problem, to quote Marlo Stanfield, but it could be a problem that you can't tell these guys going into the year, listen, guys, every game, we're fighting for our tournament lives. Yeah. All of I think of your top 7 rotation, 5 of them have won a championship. It's DiVincenzo, pardon me, and Spellman, who haven't. Yeah. Like, they're experienced guys. They knew that you guys were going to be good. So now that the regular season's over, how would you evaluate how those guys dealt with those expectations? Obviously, you had a good record in the regular season, but how do you as the coach evaluate how they handled it?
That's exactly what we do, Nick. At the end of the regular season, we look back and say, all right, given everything we went through, you know, these guys have had a lot of success. You know, they're young guys. They deal with a lot of attention. How did we handle it? And I really think they did a great job. We had some times during the middle of the season where we lost Phil Booth, a starter, for a while. We lost Eric Pascal for a while. We had 2 freshmen with broken hands. Now, not as an excuse, I'm saying everybody deals with that, but you just got to look at how did we deal with it. I just love how they stuck together, and really the leadership of Mikal Bridges and Jalen Brunson during that time, the only guys that didn't get hurt, those guys really carried us. And I think we're at a point in the season where we can actually keep getting better because we got the freshmen back, they're healthy. We got Booth back for a couple games, so we can still keep getting better at this time of the year.
Now, Coach, regardless of how you guys do this week in Madison Square Garden in the Big East tournament, you're going to be a #1 or #2 seed. Let's personally talk about the Big East tournament.
I like the way you said that, because everyone says no matter what we do, we're going to be a #1 seed, but that's not true.
No,
the way you said it is true.
You could get jumped. I mean, I'm not rooting for that, but if you guys lose,
no one else says that, and we don't talk about this in our program, but the reality is there's enough good teams that if we get beat in the Big East tournament, we will not be a 1 seed. So thank you for clarifying that.
But you've made it important to the program. 2 out of the last 3 years, you've won that Big East. Talk about how important, regardless of the seeding, how important it is to have that tournament championship before you go into the big dance.
It's important before the dance because it gives you great momentum, but it's also important for your program. We really evaluate our program on what we do in the regular season. Now, we've won the championship the last few years, and this year we didn't. And Xavier had an incredible year, and we didn't have a bad year. They just had a great year. And when you look back at the season, you look at, all right, how did you do over 18 games? And then you get into this Big East tournament, and you're playing against your brethren, right? This is your league. So how do you do in this tight, contested, intense atmosphere? And then the NCAA tournament it's a tournament, man. It's matchups. It's all kinds of things. So how we do in the regular season and this Big East tournament is really how we evaluate our program.
All right, I want to follow up on something because it seems to me, I don't have to be a detective to deduce that you have made it clear to your team, this tournament matters, guys. Yeah. Like you think you're a 1 seed, you're listening to whomever. We are not locked into a 1 seed. And I'm sure what you've also told them is, while even as a 1 seed, you're going to talk about how much, the 16's dangerous, I get that. But we know 2s get beat by 15s. And the different path to winning your regional, it is markedly more difficult as soon as you fall off that 1 line. So I'm sure you're expressing that to the team in conjunction with, and it's great to win a championship. It's great to be able to cut down some nets and say, even though we didn't win the regular season, we won the conference tournament. That's the message you're trying to get across to them this week, or you've been trying to get across to them?
No, believe it or not, Nick, we do not talk to them at all about seedings or anything like that. But we talk to them about the importance of this tournament because you're going to play back-to-back different styles, great teams. And then if you can learn to do that in this tournament, when you get to the NCAA tournament, you get 1 day in between, but the ability to prepare back-to-back is really important, and you're going to do it against the best teams in this conference.
People that aren't here in New York or haven't kind of come in for games like this, you've played in the Big East tournament, you've played in the San Diego tournament, you understand where expectations are and what. But to play a Big East tournament in the Garden is a really big deal. There's something about being in there. I've been in New York for almost 20 years. Like, every time I walk in, there's something special about it. Tell me what it's going to be like when you get there, what the electricity is like, because people show up for this.
You just look at across the country. Look at all the tournaments in the top conferences. They all move around their venues. This Big East tournament's been here 30-some years. And the New York City basketball world readies for this every year. All the alumni from our schools that are in this city, that this is what you do during this week in March if you're an alum of one of these schools. Like, you spend your week going to the tournament. And the players know it. That the vibe going into the Garden, you come up that freight elevator, and you hear the roar upstairs. There's nowhere in college basketball like it. The coaches in the Big East, we'll sit around, have a friendly beverage, and we'll talk about where does the Big East championship rate with the NCAA tournament? Like, is it comparable to a Sweet 16? Is it comparable to a Final 8? Because it's so big to all of us because you're doing it at the Garden in New York City. We've come to the point where it's between Sweet 16 and Final 8, where the value of that is that important.
You talk about the ride in the freight elevator. I'm a big fan of the Garden. I'm a big fan of big venues as the stage for someone to perform. But how much better is it when the gates open, you have someone on your squad like Jalen Brunson? Like, how much does that experience change with a guy like him?
You know what? It's a lot. When you go in road games and you have a guy like Jalen who's just the consummate competitor, there's no one that prepares himself better for a game. There's no one that likes the big stage, likes being in a situation where everyone's against them. So now you take that into a tournament and you take that into Madison Square Garden. As a coach, it gives you great confidence. And we have a saying that one man with courage makes a majority. And having him on your team, he's just got such great courage. It really hits everyone else on the team and makes them feel confident going into games.
You said something a few weeks ago that I thought was really interesting. I was excited when I heard you say it. I knew you were going to be on sometime this week to ask you about it, which is there is this FBI probe, this whole scandal swirling over college basketball. And you said something pointed that you thought you could use as a teaching tool for your players. What do you mean by that? Like, how effectively, what does that actually mean? How can you do that?
I learned something myself because I asked them, I said, hey, are you guys following this? They said, yeah. So I said, did you see the ledger that they listed all the names? And they said, no, which showed me they don't really read the articles. They just look at,
see the headline,
they look at your clips on TV, and they don't. So we copied those ledgers and in the article, and we handed it out to them. We just showed them. We said, look at all the names on here, right? I said, we said that you have to be careful with everybody you associate with in the position you are in your life now, because you don't know how they're going to use your name. So there's some guys' names on here that they might have just used their name. They might have never met that. They might have never met that agent. Some of these guys that are playing that are on there, they probably interviewed them and said, like, did you have dinner with this guy? And he probably said, I never heard of that guy. But they used their name because they might have come in contact one time. So a good way for them to learn how careful they have to be with the position they are now in their lives.
And also careful as far as knowing what is and isn't okay, because people see the big headline, $100,000. Everyone knows whether that should be allowed or not, it's not allowed. But some of the other stuff, I mean, the kid that Miles Bridges in Michigan State got caught a $76 dinner tab, like something that I think most college kids like. Why am I not allowed to say you can buy dinner? So how much of your talking with them is saying, guys, even if you're not doing something you know is wrong, like you have to make sure it's not against this very dense, long rule book, that things that might not feel wrong at all.
Yeah, you know what, Nick? I don't know how it was when you were in school, but I know even when I was in play, we didn't have compliance people like we do now. We literally have every 2 weeks a compliance officer come in and talk to the team. So you have to take away practice time, have the compliance officer come in, talk with them about what's happening currently and what rules are changing. We talk to them about it all the time. And even with that, as you said, they might not realize some guy that, says he's a friend or a cousin from New York that is coming in to go to dinner with them could be connected to an agent. They don't know. So that was my reason for showing them the ledger. Like, you don't know who's using your name to go back to someone else and say, hey, I want money back because I took him out to dinner. So we even said, like, we got 3 weeks left in the season. All dinners we're eating together. No dinners out with anybody. We're eating every meal together. Let's just get through this season and try to figure this all out.
The NCAA, we're going to do this one to wrap up. They're looking at making changes. You can't make any changes in college football or basketball unless you have a lot of people like yourself. People respect Jay Wright, respect what you've done, and what type of program you are. What are some of the changes that we need to look at moving forward? Because this really is about the kids. How can we help these kids more so than hurt them?
Chris, we could do a whole show on this, and in the offseason I would do it because I'm trying to concentrate just on the Big East right now. But the one simple thing is we have to make college basketball authentic. The guys that play college basketball have to be guys that want to be in college. The system is set up, and the NBA is responsible for it. The NBA will not allow these guys to come out of high school and go into the NBA or get paid a significant amount of money in a G League.
A livable wage.
These guys that don't want to go to college and want to be paid should be given the opportunity by the NBA to go to the G League and make a fair and reasonable wage for their services, and they should be able to go to the NBA. That way, if they choose to go to college, they should go for 3 years. But we're making these kids go to college that don't want to go, and they know they're going to get paid the next year. But the NBA's rule of not allowing them to come out of high school is forcing college to take them, and now you got guys that don't want to be there. College basketball should be guys that want to be in college for 3 years, and then there should be an avenue for kids that are good enough to get paid right out of high school.
We can talk about this for a long time. I know that your brain right now is in the Big East tournament, so come back when everything is said and done and come chat with us again. We wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you.
These guys will be watching you for a number of reasons, one being I wasn't invited, but I'm going to be there. I'm kidding. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.